Aha, we got the green light today.
Oh, great.
Hey everybody, this is the Jimmy Doane Show. I'm Counselor Curtis. Jimmy Doane is here.
Yes, I am here. Today's June 27th.
June 27th, 2018.
Yeah.
We're coming to you live twice a week, as you can see these days. 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, Wednesdays and Sundays. Please join us. Bring a friend. Happy to answer questions and comments and stuff. So, welcome to the show.
Lots of things to talk about today.
Yeah. So, what's happening?
What's happening? Well, the news, literally breaking, as Rachel Maddow would say, breaking news is Justice Kennedy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Justice Kennedy.
He was the swing vote.
Well, all right. Let's clarify that.
Okay.
As you well know, everybody has the same vote.
Right.
So, to say that any one of them is a swing vote, that's just to say that he flip-flops.
Right.
That's all that says. Okay. Any one of them could, just flip to the other side and redirect the majority in one way or another. But he was the random element, the radical, nobody knows what are you going to get.
Right.
Justice Kennedy, here it comes.
Right.
So it's kind of nice that he's signing off.
What's fascinating, two things.
Uh-huh.
One, Trump gets to appoint, maybe another justice who's going to be,
sure.
unless he makes the same mistake that Eisenhower made when he appointed.
Right. His two worst mistakes.
His two worst mistakes, and they're on the Supreme Court.
There's nothing you can do. That's the crazy thing about the court, as you well know. People have a tendency to absolutely politically reverse themselves once they get on the court. It's amazing, but their prior record is really very little indication of where they're going to end up.
We've seen that on so many. I mean, we've been around. I've been around long enough to witness that, where the presidents, after the guy starts ruling on stuff. That was the guy out of Maine or whatever, had no record, and he got on anyway. That was under Bush, one of the Bushes, I think. But the point is that, like you say, they can change. They read the newspapers like everybody else. And they're subject to, political, whim.
Well, I mean, there's some kind of a sea change right when they get on the Supreme Court.
Right.
It's the appointment for life at the highest court of the land somehow changes the jurist a bit.
I suppose it does. And of course, it reminds me a little bit of these people who will run on one, politicians, who will run on one thing. And now that I'm in here, now I can really make the changes. It just doesn't work. But what's interesting to me, of course, is that Gorsuch, of course, is pretty reliably conservative now, I think. And interestingly enough, he only got on because the Republicans delayed the appointment that Obama wanted to make for 8-10 months or something like that. And of course, the Democrats have said, well, when we get a hold of this thing, we're going to do the same thing. Well, of course, it's a year and a half.
2 years is different.
Yeah, 2 years is a little long time. And of course, they're not in control of the Senate. So what we can probably see is we might see some more 6-3 decisions.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a sea change in the court for sure. Provided that whoever gets appointed continues to go along with their
How do
we would expect.
How do you vet these people? Because you can't. You can't.
It's so hard. Now, some of them have long appeals court judicial records.
Right.
And in those situations, you can pretty much see where they're going to go. But a lot of them, Kagan came right out of... She was a professor at Harvard,
yeah.
right?
Right.
What did you expect? Well, that was...
seriously.
That was like the craziest I'm going to pat your back appointment ever.
Yeah. Well, you've got to figure a professor out of any of those colleges is going to be lib these days.
Yeah. That would obviously be the strong indication, and she is. But what I don't like about the Kennedy, I wish he'd stayed on for just a little while longer, because he just wrote a concurrence.
Okay.
In an opinion, and the concurrence was, up until he retired, very important. What he said in the concurrence was he referred to a doctrine called the Chevron deference. And this comes out of a case, as you can imagine, that was brought by Chevron or involved Chevron. It comes down to...
Now, which case was this? The concurrence on which case?
The brand new one is, or the one that he just wrote the concurrence in.
Was the oil thing?
Shoot, I don't have the name of that one.
Okay.
I've got like 5 cases here. And
okay.
If you see Kennedy concurrence, if you Google Chevron deference,
okay,
that it'll come up. And what it is there was a doctrine that came about in the courts that a few decades ago that basically said that administrative agencies, when they interpreted a statute, were given a huge amount of deference. And if their reading was even reasonable in terms of the interpretation, right, then it flew, and the courts wouldn't touch it. And through the years, what's happened is the courts have basically abdicated the responsibility to interpret statutes to the administrative agencies.
Right.
And
unelected, we might add.
The unelected, appointed, unaccountable, ridiculously powerful administrative agencies who can make law with the stroke of a pen, and don't have to take votes.
They're judge and jury. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
They were up until, so his concurrence indicated that he would be willing to revisit the doctrine of Chevron deference.
Okay.
And in fact, it pretty strongly indicated that if there was to be a revisit, that he would go the other way, and that Chevron deference would be done in the courts, and administrative agencies would have a much harder time implementing policy. And every challenge to them could be brought more directly to the courts. And that would have been really an awesome outcome.
Well, now, but this concurrence now holds as a precedent, doesn't it?
Well, no. Because it is not. It's outside of the opinion. That's what the concurrence really sort of means.
We've had dicta before that were outside.
That's what it is dicta. Which dicta means it's not controlling. It speaks to the thing, dictation, but it speaks to the issue, but it doesn't control the issue.
But we've had some really horrendous cases that have relied on footnotes.
That's correct, because it speaks to the problem.
Right.
And if you can draw a principle out of the dicta, that's how it gets applied. And in this, that's why you write the concurrence, is hopefully so that the next time the issue comes up, they'll read out of your concurrence and say, Kennedy was right on this concurrence. We're going the other way.
Could be.
Right. And so it's good that it's out there. It's too bad Kennedy didn't get to take a look at it, because that would be a nice step in the other direction. But there were several. I do think whoever his replacement will be probably better for the country, generally speaking. But there have been several interesting cases this week that came out.
Yes.
Which we can comment on real quick.
Let's do that.
The travel ban was upheld.
Yep.
Trump versus Hawaii. This was a limited travel ban. It basically goes back to the president has huge powers when it comes to international relationships. So,
well, the dissents were interesting because they made no sense at all. I mean, the dissents relied on his tweets that he did during the campaign.
Is that right?
This is what he really meant. He really meant this is a Muslim thing.
You're right.
And of course, and I think that at least one of the it might have been Justice Thomas that came along and said something to the effect of if you start going back, his concurrence also had a paragraph in it in one of the cases that really, he said, these guys, the lower courts or whatever it is, have got, what are they doing stepping in on this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And the
right. Well, and that's basically what it was. This was a clearly.
What are you doing in the ninth? A majority of the judges in the Ninth Circuit make a ruling for the entire country. No can do, says Justice Thomas.
Well, I mean, they can, but they are overstepping their bounds.
Well, that's what the Supreme Court said. Basically, they finally went, into 5-4. I guess it was 5-4, and they said, no, this is that you have to read the law. This is the way it actually came out. The travel ban. Mm-hmm. This is what it says. It said nothing about any tweets, nothing about
right. The four corners of the document.
That's right. That's it.
And yeah, And that's what I would expect. I would expect the liberals obviously were a voting bloc against, and, and I could imagine. I didn't even read the dissents because I could imagine it. Oh, religion, religious freedom.
At least one or two of the dissents rested on what he really meant, and of course we're going, what do you mean? Because
you don't know that.
Yeah, you don't know.
You never know.
He was campaigning.
Right.
What do you expect?
Talk about lies.
Talk about lying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is and to take that as well. To read in what he said 2 years ago. I mean, you could go back, as you well know. Mm-hmm. You can go back on any of these people what they wrote in college.
Right.
And this is what.
And occasionally they do, but to try to say that the policy is this way or that way based on some comment.
So what's another one you got there?
So there's several more. Another one is the labor union decision.
Ooh,
huge boy. One.
Huge.
Mark Janus versus the Association of State and County Municipal Employees.
Yeah.
And basically the ruling came out, finally set this straight. This has been 40 years we have had a crooked policy built into the system. And the policy was that if you were not a member of a union, but you were in a union-controlled job,
you had to pay dues.
You had to pay dues anyway.
Yeah.
This is it is just amazing that how they got that through to begin with. We're representing you. It doesn't matter if you don't want it. It's good for you.
Not only that, if you looked at them and said, you're the union masters, your beliefs are exact opposite of mine.
Right.
I mean, when you vote that you are taking away my right to complain or whatever it is.
Right. Well, that's what it was. It starts. The concept of unions is great. The concept of people getting together and voting in blocks and bargaining together is great. But you can't make it mandatory.
Right.
Then it destroys the entire thing. And that's what this.
Well, there's the Republican Union and the Democrat Union.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so this is that's a great pushback on the union situation. Now, if we can only expand that to include taxes,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, the concept is the freeloaders, right? The concept is, those teachers or whatever, those employees are benefiting from our bargaining or whatever. And that's the same argument that people always use when they want to enforce taxation. They say, well, we don't want freeloaders benefiting from the benefits of society without paying their fair share. It's like,
well, they do that here. Well, again, it's interesting because they do that typically with utilities. Mm-hmm. You run a water line down the thing. If you've got your own well, too bad. You pay.
You pay anyway.
Yeah.
Amazing. So hopefully there's a little bit of carving back out of that. Oh, and then the final thing. This actually happened a couple weeks ago, and we didn't really comment on it too much, but the Supreme Court made state taxation okay for internet.
Yes.
And basically, and as you sent me a great article, I thought, that pointed out that the tax compliance costs now are going to be outrageous.
Yeah.
If you're a small business, you might have just gotten shut down on the internet because of the inability of you to simply comply with 48 states' tax.
Yeah. Well, just to bring everybody up to date, hitherto, you had to have a physical presence in the state in order for the state to collect taxes.
Right.
And Amazon, for instance, has got warehouses all over the place, but it doesn't have them everywhere.
Right.
So you can't. There are times that you could, if you're in a state that doesn't have a physical Amazon presence, you don't pay the taxes when you order up from Amazon.
Until now.
Well, apparently, according to that article, there's still one or two states that don't charge taxes at all, sales taxes. Mm-hmm. And if you reside in those or something, maybe, I don't know exactly what it is. You have to move to New Hampshire or something.
Right.
Whatever states don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but they're getting ready, and of course this also has to do with the anytime the states or the feds see some money that somehow is slipping through their fingers, they'll find a way to grab onto it.
Right.
And this is the same thing that's happening with bitcoins and the cryptocurrencies. They're coming around now. They're trying to say, how can we regulate this?
Right.
For the safety of the consumer.
Right.
Please don't regulate me.
Please don't make me any safer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, it's hideous. It's beyond hideous. But we'll see what the effect of that.
Well, so anyway, the court's over until the first Monday in October.
Okay.
Basically, so we probably won't have much more to say about them.
We'll talk about the appointment at that time, probably.
True, that's right. That should actually, hopefully, that'll go through fairly quickly.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Alrighty.
What else we got?
Okay. Well, one of the things that we can go on to just briefly onto the Maxine Waters thing. This is an out. We had talked last time about the red hen.
Right.
Which, interesting, as I said, the red hen in Washington, D.C., with no affiliation, has been egged rather regularly.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The owner came in there, opened up his place. No affiliation.
Right.
It's 150 miles away from the one where she got...
Oh, I saw... That's right. That's what it was. I saw a sign, and it said... It was in somebody's window, and it said, "Not that red hen."
And so anyway, the owner, they went by there, and the owner was down there hosing down his place because it had been egged.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I know, really. So
imagine?
Anyway, Maxine Waters' course came out, and you have to see, it's all over YouTube, of course. And it's interesting. There are two things to consider here. She went full raging mad. You need to go.
Yeah, she went full brown shirts.
I mean, totally. She said, it is your duty. And what was interesting to see the applause.
Yeah.
I mean, she's surrounded by a couple of thousand people at least.
Well, it sounds like relief. It sounds. I mean,
But my point is that what she was claiming was you need to follow these people. Don't let them go into the store. Don't let them do gasoline. Block them from anything. Food. The grocery store.
Right.
Harangue them.
Right.
And
harass.
Harass them.
Stalk.
Go to their house, and of course that happened almost immediately to the Homeland Security.
Yeah, Christian Nielsen. We talked about that last time.
Okay.
And it's insane. I don't think. I mean, clearly she doesn't understand the difference between incivility and harassment.
Right.
And there is a bright line between those things. It's if you run into a public official at a restaurant and you decide to make an ass of yourself and get into a heated conversation with them, that's perfectly legal. You're allowed to be uncivilized. You'll probably be escorted from the restaurant,
right,
which is fine, but that's legal. If you go to somebody's house, that's stalking, okay? That's illegal. We do not want that. It's illegal on every level for everybody.
Your home is your castle.
It is. Otherwise, everybody would rent giant boom boxes and just park them outside of their opponents' houses and just play music all night long. You can't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's disrupting the peace. It's harassment. It's stalking. These are actual crimes that disrupt somebody's life, and it's illegal, and you're going to be arrested. The real irony is that some of these people get arrested for that, and then they'll be separated from their children.
Yes. Right. They spend the night in the hoosgow.
Right.
Or whatever, yeah. Well, it's interesting. She, to absolutely harass Trump staffers and protesters targeting the home of DH. Yes, that's right. We just talked about that. But I mean, this little, as I say, it's all over the internet. If you do it, it's like a 2 or 3 minute little harangue that she did.
Well, it's crazy. What's insane
Go ahead.
is that other people have picked up on this.
Yeah.
I read an article in the Atlantic today that said maybe civility is not the best way forward. Yeah. I mean, Trevor Noah.
Civility. The root is civilization.
Right. No, I know. That's right. That's right. If you abandon civility, you abandon civilization.
Right.
So
all bets are off.
That's it. And Trevor Noah comes out and says,
"Oh God."
Yeah. He says, it was uncivilized for Martin Luther King to go around. No. It's civil disobedience.
Right.
Okay. Civil disobedience. If anyone was be entitled to some incivility, it would have been them in the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay, not today for the border enforcement issue. This is insanity. And to suggest that incivility... Oh, another person has tweeted out that it is an effect of white privilege to insist on civility. Yes, this is what's coming. Is if you insist on civility, it's only because you're in a privileged place in society,
right?
And you want the status quo.
What's interesting, of course, is that we're, as white people, we're not a protected class,
right?
So apparently, if you're one of the protected classes, you can be incivil. Right. You want.
Yeah, if we do it, we have no privilege.
No privilege, right.
It's the reverse,
it's
obviously.
The reverse, right.
People have black privilege or whatever. You have minority privilege, but
to claim
we don't get white privilege anymore. Might have had it at one point, but...
well, what's going to be interesting is as the country, especially like California, which is like becoming minority white, and it'll be
interesting to see how they reassert if that becomes a thing. I doubt it.
Well, I mean, if you're a minority, what are they? Do you have Chinese privilege or something? And I mean,
yeah. I mean, look, the whole concept is ridiculous.
Yeah, I know it is.
It's
kind of being ridiculous, but anyway, it was interesting that at least it was weak. And I think I mentioned this last time, but Schumer and Pelosi both came out and said,
well, Schumer's I thought was very strong.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his actual quote was "chill the fuck out."
Okay.
No, it was you cannot. We should not harass our political opponents. Nobody should engage in uncivilized harassment of the political opponents. You can't do that. That's so far over the line.
You wonder what would happen if people started to harass Maxine.
Well, right. Well, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that if this goes on much longer, that there won't be a backlash against people.
Right.
You had
that's what Charles
Peter
Schumer
Fonda
was probably thinking about. Is that he was saying, next thing you know, they're going to be
man, you don't want him to come by my house.
No.
and that's the next thing. Now you can just Google anybody's house these days. So you had who did I just mention? Let's see. You said Schumer.
Christian somebody? No.
No.
Not Pelosi.
No.
It'll come to you.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just see here if I've got. What's that?
Nothing.
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 Something dropped?
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
Okay. Speaking of what's happening, let's see here. What is happening in this country is there was the upset election primary of the century. Well, not of the century, but of this cycle, and that is the 28-year-old Latina who upset. Let's see, what was this? Her name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a 28-year-old Latina running her first campaign, ousted 10-term incumbent Representative Joe Crowley in New York's 14th congressional district. And so what was interesting, a couple of things. First of all, she's a socialist. She's an avowed socialist. And
actually, I have her. I have her campaign poster.
Really?
Yes. Let's see if I get it right. Oops, that's not it. There it is. This is her. This is her campaign. This is what she's fighting for: Medicare for all, universal jobs guarantee, fully funded public schools and universities, paid family and sick leave, housing as a human right, justice system reform, immigration justice, infrastructure overhaul, clean campaign finance, and an economy of peace.
Yeah.
So this is full on socialism.
Yeah, no, totally. And it was interesting because the guy she defeated was not left enough.
Right.
He was kind of a lefty.
Well, right.
And yet he wasn't. It wasn't. She out-lefted him.
Oh well, obviously. And what I'm waiting for now is, if I were on the Democrat side, what I would do is I would come out and say, whatever she's offering, I'll double it.
Yeah. There you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wait, universal basic income? What is she giving you? $15 an hour? $30 an hour. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Huh? $30 an hour.
Right.
What? She wants universities Hey, how about free preschool?
Yeah.
We'll pick your kids up.
Yeah.
We'll mow your lawn.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
That's right.
We'll do it all for you, cradle to grave.
She's 28,
Uh-huh.
which she's a young person, obviously, and this is
My God, 28.
yeah, 28 years old, and she's going to have a seat in the Congress, I guess. I think.
Well, that was the primary.
Right, I know, but who's she going to run against? A Republican, huh?
Oh yeah, and I guess in New York she's going to win. Huh?
You're right.
She's
She
going to
might
walk
very
away
well
with
in
it.
that particular district.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because who knows that particular district. Well, it is interesting that when you see what happened was in that particular election. This wasn't the only one either. The turnout was abysmal. The turnout was nothing. And what had happened is she'd talk about grassroots. She walked door to door in that district. And
she's hot.
Yeah, she's hot, totally. And but she went around and walked door to door. Basically, the turnout was, I don't know what it was, 5 or 10% or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she got over half of it. So that was the story. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens, of course, with low turnout. But
it's a little disconcerting that the voters are so uneducated that they're literally embracing Marxist philosophy at this point.
This is I've said this for 20, 30 years now, that this is a consequence of the government-run school system. I mean, they love socialism in the government. They'll never preach capitalism in the government schools.
I don't know. I learned about capitalism.
Well, I learned about it. I really learned about it. There was lip service, but I think what you learn in the government-run schools, of course, is about the robber barons.
Yeah,
which is the ultimate capitalism, and they should have been left alone. It would have been just fine.
Right.
But no, these are terrible criminals.
Right. Now I still remember the image from my high school yearbook of some guy with his bag there.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. They had that. It was all muckrack. What I also remember, talk about the government-run schools. I remember going to your high school, and I.
Oh, right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I was sitting. What they done?
History class in
parent-teacher night or something.
Right.
Like
yeah.
That. And on the wall were pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some people listening to this podcast might not realize this, but this is like during the Reagan administration or something.
Mm-hmm.
And on the wall were tyrants. There was Stalin
mm-hmm.
and Hitler,
mm-hmm.
Mao Zedong.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was, and
Mussolini,
mm-hmm. and James Watt. Who? James what? James Watt was the minister. Was the Department of the Interior head. I think he was the guy in charge of the parks.
Okay.
In the United States, he was secretary of the secretary,
undersecretary.
He was secretary. He was a cabinet level guy.
Okay.
And he had advocated selling off
parklands.
Well, some unused stuff. There was a couple of buildings, for instance, that he wanted to sell. He says, "We're not using them. We know. Mm-hmm. Let's get rid of them." And in the scoop, there was like 0.0001% of parklands.
Hanging's not good enough for him.
I mean, you'd have thought. I mean, literally, they had him on the wall in the company of time. You thought, this is a little hyperbole. I said, what are they teaching in this place? Mm-hmm. And that's what they were teaching. Mm-hmm. So, and that was in the 80s.
Well, we're not going to do it. We're going to do an education.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see. Activist and member of the Democratic Socialists of America. She won voters in the minority-majority district with ruthlessly efficient grassroots bid, even as Crowley, the fourth-ranking. That's the big deal. He's the fourth-ranking. He was like second in line to succeed Pelosi. Mm. And so it was first time.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Okay, that's that. Let me just see here if I've got the next. Okay. That's another thing that I got here. What have I got here? I forgot. I have in San Francisco. This is what's happening in San Francisco, as we've talked a little bit about before. But San Francisco is being. They talk about the divide between the rich and the poor. Mm-hmm. San Francisco is one of these where, if you are making under six figures, you can't live there.
Right.
You just can't live there. And so what's happened is the restaurants, in order to survive, are more and more automating. Well, in this one particular restaurant, San Francisco, a Greek restaurant with a devoted following, serves spit-fired meat two ways in a photogenic.
All they have is 2 meals. You notice that?
Huh?
They only have 2 meals.
Is that right?
You can only get chicken, or you can have chicken.
Oh,
I mean, it's you can have chicken or chicken salad.
It's supposed to be lamb.
I don't know.
Whatever. I mean, we have a Greek restaurant here that has a fabulous whatever they call those things.
Gyro.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so the small menu is so appealing and the place itself so charming that you almost forget, as a diner, that you have to do much of the work of dining out yourself. You scout your own table, you fetch and fill your own water glass, and if you'd like another glass of wine, you go back to the counter. I mean, the fact is they are obviously getting rid of any labor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they do have a couple of little runners, and I suppose they might have somebody who actually wipes the table down after you.
Yeah, I mean, at some level, there's two things about this. First of all, their clientele is so upscale that the clientele is not going to destroy the place, like a lot of places would. But at some point, like you said, you have to have somebody come out and wipe the table off, because people aren't going to clean up their own spills and stuff like that. I mean,
I said they have some runners in there, and of course, and I guess they got some food prep back in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, if you want to eat there, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And this is instead of, well, of course, they're coming out now with the robots that make the hamburgers, automatically and stuff like that. I mean, that's where it's headed.
This is awesome. I mean, that's the wealth creation. If you can eliminate one laborer out of the circle that it takes to create a product, you have saved all of that money. All of that money gets redistributed back into society. Of course, that laborer has to go find another job.
And say, good luck in San Francisco.
Well,
I mean, because you can't be a yard guy unless you commute.
Yeah, but look, as you well know, the desire for those things is going to raise the wage level. There will be people in San Francisco with yard guys, and the yard guys will be making six figures.
I see.
Okay. And the same with the restaurateur people. There will be eventually a couple of waiters in that restaurant, and they'll be badass, and they'll be paid.
Well, the guys that are really making the money in places like that are like the plumbers.
Right, you have to have them.
You have to have, and electricians. I mean, and those guys are making $150,000 or whatever it is.
I would bet.
So that's going to be, the race. But of course, you have to have rich people to support those people.
Well, San Francisco, you've got Silicon Valley.
Well, that's right. But the other thing is that I thought that was Las Vegas.
That's exactly Silicon.
All right. I'm not trusting. I'm not trusting my.
That's what the band used
to any silicone diode.
right.
From war games.
The band used to call North Hollywood Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So anyway, that was it. Okay. Next thing on the list is guess what? The FDA has finally come around.
Yes, this is huge.
This is huge.
So what they've done is they've ratified a medical use for a derivative of marijuana plant.
Right.
The CBD oil, which doesn't get you high or anything, but just has some sort of major 40% reduction in seizures in the patients that it's designed for, is now a recognized medical benefit.
Right.
So
it can be prescribed. Right.
Right. And what makes that so awesome is it will kick marijuana off of the Schedule 1 of drugs.
Really?
Yes. What it is now, schedule is a stupid term for list. And what it is the FDA has lists of what they consider to be their categories. I guess category is probably a better word. They categorize substances, and if you're on Schedule 1...
This is like poison stuff.
Exactly. There's no medically recognized use for it. In fact, it's worse than poison, because there's poisons on Schedule 2.
Right.
Because there's plenty of poisons that'll help you out if used correctly.
Right.
Marijuana was on Schedule 1. No recognized benefit anywhere, but now there is.
Now there is.
So they're going to have to kick marijuana off Schedule 1 within about 90 days.
Really?
Yes. And that, I think, is going to be a sea change in the way that it's treated.
What's interesting is they've always said in the past, we have even though there's 1,000 years of help from marijuana, they've said we had no recognized, what do? You go through the approval process.
Right.
And because they didn't allow it.
Right.
They flat, if you wanted to set up a trial on the advantages to marijuana, you couldn't get a permit.
Right.
So, but apparently now this has gone through.
Yeah.
Well, this, like you say, opens up the door because now people can say, look at that. I want to try this. Now, this is primarily supposedly for epilepsy.
Right.
But damn well doctors are going to be prescribing this off-label.
What does that mean?
Lot of stuff. Thalidomide is one of those things that is like this. You can prescribe it off-label. It happens to cure some other stuff.
Prescribe it off to something other than what's on its label.
Exactly.
Right.
And they do this all the time.
For sure.
And so now you can understand that you can prescribe this. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff just besides seizures.
Yeah.
Or epilepsy, where they're going to find out that there is
it's useful.
It's useful.
Right.
And they're going to be prescribing the pants off of it off-label.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be fabo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next.
What else we got?
Harley Davidson.
Harley Davidson.
This is an offspring of, which is going to be really interesting. This is an offshoot of the tariff business.
Right.
Harley Davidson, of course, American
continuing
made
to ramp up.
Huh?
Which is continuing to ramp up.
Well, you wonder what is the reaction going to be? What has happened is that Harley Davidson, made in America, by Americans, good jobs, a uniquely American thing. I mean, anybody rides with that sound. They tried to patent that sound.
No way.
They tried to copyright the sound, and the copyright place turned them down.
I bet.
Because the other big motorcycle, Triumph or somebody, they said you can't do that.
Yeah.
So, but the point was that you can tell that sound. I mean, that throbbing.
Right.
Generally speaking, that's a Harley. Mm-hmm. It's a hog, which is I think hog is their a symbol on the NYSE, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think so. At any rate, they have decided to move. So they sell about I don't know what it is, 6 or 8 or 10% of their motorcycles, maybe more, overseas.
Okay.
In the Europe area, and so they have a manufacturing facility over there, limited, but they're going to expand it because when they ship the motorcycles over there, it adds about $2,200 per one in the tariff. This
right.
Just started doing that, so they've decided to look. We're going to expand the plant wherever it is in Holland or someplace, so that we will avoid that. Well, this is kind of a backfire-y thing, obviously, because now there's going to be some job loss here, and there's going to be some more. Now it turns out it's not the decline. Sales have been sort of declining anyway with Harley a little bit, but
every time. Yeah.
But still,
every time I see a Harley, I think sucker.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as it is, American products, of course, movies, Coca-Cola is a prestige in Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah. When you take somebody out, you order up a Coke. I mean, and of course it has real sugar in it down there. That's what people say down in Mexico. But the Harley, of course, is a status symbol in Europe.
Okay.
And so that they're going to sell 22,000 of them or however many they sell a year, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so now they're going to.
Well, and you heard Trump responded to their.
Yeah, he said he's going to tax the bejesus out of
right.
them.
So, like I said, it's accelerating. Now you have this company stuck in between two countries that want to tax the crap out of it, and so. I don't fault Harley for going wherever it's cheapest.
No question about it.
And
they have to look out for their shareholders.
Well, absolutely, and also their customers.
Their customers.
Wherever they go to sell them cheaper, every customer gets a cheaper Harley.
Yeah,
and I mean
we like to think of them as less expensive.
Okay,
not cheaper.
So they are still. We want the biggest trading circle possible always. And we get this more and more of this Trump trade warfare.
Well, they are, again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because Trump has decided to double down on some of this stuff.
Well, every week I hear more doubling down.
Yeah, and of course now that the Chinese and the Canadian, what's his name, Justin Trudeau has said, we're not taking this. We're going to really, we're going to start. And of course, he's kind of a socialist. You can't tell. He's kind of a loose cannon, so I don't know what the deal's going to be with that. Well,
yeah,
I they're one of our largest trading partners, so to speak. Who knows how that's going to be? Okay. Now, what we usually would do at this point is to have our theme song that engineer Eric used to play, and that was the Venezuelan.
As a matter of fact.
No, you don't.
Oh, yes.
You do.
Oh, yes.
This was.
Hold on, everybody.
Okay.
Hold on.
Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. And, now, we couldn't hear it here, but apparently we played the Hugo.
Yes,
update.
Hopefully that went out right.
Yeah, hopefully that went out at any rate. The Socialists United of Venezuela and its president, Nicolas Maduro, continue to run this once relatively prosperous South American oil nation into the ground. People are still starving. Hospitals are short-staffed. People of means have moved to Madrid or Miami. People with no means are hightailing it to Colombia and Brazil. If this unfolding disaster were taking place in Washington, one would probably blame the Russians. But this is Caracas, so it's the fault of the CIA. Oil production is still dismal at best, collapsing at worst. Wall Street bond lords have been waiting for at least, and this is one of the things, has been waiting for a year to see that the bonds should spike, because the inflation rate now is 15,000% or something. For you, the bolivar is essentially worthless. And I don't know what they use for money down there, but what few dollars they get. I suppose if you're an American tourist, you might be able to, walk through there fairly well. But I mean, you could spend dollars like you can in Zimbabwe or something. But at any rate, the thing about it is, this is how bad it's gotten. The latest cabinet shuffle is just noise, as Maduro simply realigned his power base to insulate himself against the palace coup from within the ranks. But the top-tier military still has power at oil firm PDVSA, but it's going increasingly difficult to trickle down funds to the mid-level officers and the workers. But what has happened is they've started to ration water.
Yeah, I saw that.
They have, and the military has taken over the distribution of water.
Right.
To arrive at the El Paraiso water filling station in Caracas by sunrise, somebody, Sanchez, wakes before 4 a.m. Now, this is how bad it was. One thing in Russia, you used to see the long lines for bread or meat or something like that outside the store, but not water.
Water is one of those things that if you don't have for just a couple of days,
you are in trouble.
Toast.
And especially now, of course, yeah. So at any rate, in this tanker in a slow-moving line with a dozen other tankers, only 2 of the 10 pumps work. Sanchez will have to have time for a couple of deliveries if he's lucky. And if he's really lucky, the military won't intercept him. They hijack the trucks just like that, says Sanchez, leaning on a rusty railing. Once that happens, you're in their hands, and you have to drive the truck wherever they want to, which, of course, guess what? Venezuela's military has come to oversee the desperate lucrative water trade as reservoirs empty, broken pipes flood neighborhoods, overwhelmed personnel walk out. So the point is that they have now, of course, in order to fix this, you know what they did? They named
Rain dance.
Huh? Well, no. Last week, the president named Elise Fastos as the official state utility, as the head of the new water ministry. So she's the water czar. That's what you have to have. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten, that you have to have a water czar.
Yeah, well, okay, so what everybody should take away from this is that Maduro is a very, very well-meaning person and has no clue how capitalism works. And he believes that he can make all the decisions for the country better than all the people in the country can make those decisions. And what happens when somebody decides that is they run their country into the dirt, like he's done. And this is what socialism rot.
Well, what's fascinating is you get this Latina girl who just won in New York. Has anybody ever showed her what's happening in Venezuela?
Brilliant. I would love to see her confronted with Venezuela and
explain it.
Right.
Oh, they're not doing it right.
Right. Obviously, she's going to say that. That's the only thing she can say is they're not doing it right. How would you do it different?
Well, here's what she says. We're going to have free this, free
that's
that,
not
free
different.
everything.
That's the same.
That's true. That's the same. That didn't work for them.
Yeah.
And in fact, they had a resource.
Right.
Just like in Alaska or in Norway, where they had an ongoing that actually could provide money, and not impoverish the people with taxes. So, but the Latina girl up there doesn't have that, except the taxpayers, obviously.
Right.
Well, but you just say, where's the money coming from?
Well, she's going to say the rich people. She's going to say, let's tax the bejesus out of the rich people and give everybody everything they want. She's the savior. She's gonna come in. Hey, this is straight out of the Marx playbook.
Yeah.
And then that combined with Maxine Waters, just march over to your neighbor's farm and take it. You don't like what they're doing? Go ahead, take it.
Yeah, well, that's what they. It's interesting when you read the history of stuff like that, especially in 1930s or 30s Russia, for instance, when they.
Well, the 1910s, before the Russian Revolution.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean that's what led to the revolution was the mass takeover and then the poverty and all.
Really? You mean you're telling me that the Tsar took over stuff back then?
No, they got wiped out. That was the Tsar system got wiped out. Anastasia and Nicholas and everybody, and then that's when Trotsky and.
Yeah, but that was in like 1918, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no. Okay. Right. That's gonna say that was the Russian Revolution.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was thinking. But I mean, after that, in the 30s, Stalin and group they decreed something about taking over the farms. And
right.
They forced these, and there was this mass starvation.
Mass starvation.
Yeah, just incredible. Same thing with Mao and all
right.
that stuff. So I mean, we're talking about tens of millions of dead
that's
people.
That's right. And fortunately, there's not that many people in Venezuela. But man, I would hate to be there or have relatives there. And be watching that, but we've talked to him a little bit about our organ playing friend. Yeah. Well, we got a bunch of Venezuelan friends. We could get one to call in at some point. I know they keep track of what's going on down there too.
Yeah, I know.
He said it's horrendous.
Yeah.
He said it's absolutely horrendous. But look, obviously Maduro is stacking the cabinet in all of the positions of power.
Well, he's already taken over, I think, the Supreme Court to some extent.
Yes, and he's stacking all the important positions with military. Mm-hmm. What do you think's going to happen eventually? Eventually, some military guy is going to be like, you know what? We don't need you anymore. Yeah. I've got all my people in place. And it's going to be a military dictatorship. Then you have the military
coup. And then, of course, they're so smart, they can run everything. Like they did in Egypt when the military took over.
Well, and interestingly, obviously in Egypt, then they gave it up for a vote.
Yeah.
And then they voted, and then they took back over because they didn't like how the vote turned out.
Yeah.
So, look, it's troubled times in Venezuela, and we can only hope the best possible solution we could think of is a military coup and then have the military hold free elections again or some type of...
One of the little minor problems is we've also said when you think about it here in the Western Hemisphere, the United States was founded by the founding fathers when they wrote the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence and all that stuff, which was all fairly new. And this was basically on individual freedom. The problem is when the Spaniards came over here and the Portuguese, they had none of those countries down there have a history of any kind of independence. Mm-hmm. I mean, Bolivar and those other people, they basically, it's always been tyrannical one way or the other.
Right.
So when you look at something like, the only places that have any kind of freedom at all are the places that the Brits took over some, and the French. And the Dutch.
Right.
And other than that, though, I mean, you look at some of the Caribbean islands, the St. Martin, which is half French and half British. Even those, you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And then you look at the difference on Hispaniola, where you've got Haiti, which is French, which is really poor, and then this is the reversal of what I just said. But the Dominican Republic is not so poor, but you can it's just one of those satellite images.
Still pretty poor.
Yeah,
but I see what you're saying, and yeah, obviously we have among the English with Locke and Hobbes and things like that more.
They don't have anybody like that, and the seriously, when you think about this,
no, I know they have Rousseau.
Well, Rousseau's French.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Who did you?
Yeah, but I meant the Spanish. There's no Spanish Austrians.
Right.
So they don't have a history. And of course, the other little minor problem is you look at places like, for instance, like Costa Rica and some other places down there. The CIA and the Americans, we've been meddling in their stuff all along.
No.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have our presence, if you want to call that, our influence has been horrendous south of the border. Horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you, Teddy Roosevelt.
And that's how he gets away with calling us out for all the harm right now.
True.
It's true. We were taking it on the chin for our prior transgressions.
Oh my God.
But
continuing, we invaded Grenada under Reagan, so to free our people. At any rate, that's all pretty much.
Anything else? Okay, I got a couple of quick notes.
Okay.
Just real quick. Did you see the George Will and or David Brooks columns?
No.
Those guys are off the reservation.
Really?
Yeah.
I knew that David Brooks has always been off.
Right. Well, he totally abdicated any republicanism.
Yeah, I know. Years ago he did this though. He would be on the news hour with opposite Shields.
Yeah.
And Shields was the liberal.
Right.
And David Brooks
was a centrist at the most.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, well, he showed his true colors now, so
okay.
It's interesting. Okay, and then finally, I just
want to know what did George Will say?
George Will has basically come out and said Trump is destroying the country. Vote Democrat. So I don't know that he actually said vote Democrat, but the implication is he's no longer on board with the Republicans. So I don't know who he supports, but yeah, I guess we'll find out soon. But all right, one other thing that is important, but this is from our science update. So let's see if this goes. Okay, check out this incredible image right here. What you're looking at is the stellatron. What is it? Oh crap! Now I don't have the freaking name of it. It's this is the fusion device.
Okay.
This is the German built Max Planck laboratory created fusion device. Look at the design of that thing. Talk about a space age object. Now, what it promises to do is unlimited power.
Right.
If this thing cranks up, and they are making they are making huge strides in creating this, and it'll be online, my guess is, before 2050, which basically means oil will be out, coal, everything will be out. There will be one power source, and it will be this, if this thing works, because you'll literally be able to burn seawater for fuel. So this is amazing. And
then the oceans dry up and we're doomed.
Right. We run out of water. Run out of ocean water.
That's it, yeah.
Fortunately, we can make that too.
The problem is, of course, the government's going to step in and regulate it.
Well, for sure.
As it is now, when you think about it, if it wasn't for the government, we wouldn't have nuclear reactors. They have to guarantee them.
They have to. Well, what do you mean?
No private enterprise would build without a guarantee of insurance from the United States government. No private entity would get together and build a nuclear reactor without.
Why not?
A backup. Well, because the liability is so phenomenal. I mean, if something goes wrong, if you have a
what could go wrong these days?
Chernobyl. Right. We think we've got them so that they ostensibly won't melt down, but people they go 3 Mile Island, they go Chernobyl, they go whatever
Fukushima.
It was, Japan,
right?
And so you can't get insurance,
right? But I guess I wouldn't even get insurance.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd go naked.
Yeah.
Because who are you going to sue?
Right. Well, first they have to be a disaster, and if you're sure there's not going to be one, then, and if there is one, you're probably dead anyway because you went down there. Right. Exactly.
Well, the fusion thing is what's interesting. Is now this is not antimatter.
No.
So, which is another thing that they're working on.
Yeah. That's bizarro world. That's out of my league. But this is totally discoverable technology.
Well, what is this thing supposed to generate anyway? Do you have any idea? I mean, is it supposed
1.21 gigawatts? I think is the
gigawatts?
No, it's
88 miles an hour.
That's right. You mean in terms of the power that it puts out?
It's minuscule, isn't it? This particular.
Yeah. Right now, they're just this is an experimental device. It's not designed to actually generate power. This is designed for them to test some of the theories involved in the creation of a device that would ultimately create power. But
so what we're talking about here is having a hydrogen bomb in a box.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Hydrogen bomb in a box.
That's what I'm
with
calling
a throttle on it.
That's it.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah, and each atom that gets annihilated releases like 15 million watts of power or something ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying, man.
It's
and of course you got your power station over here in the closet.
Oh yeah.
And every electric. I just got my utility bill. I'd like to see that cut by 1,000%.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, what a sea change that's going to be. So anyway, all right, that's all. I guess we got it.
Yeah, just about a year. So anyway, don't forget, this is Jimmy Doane Show.
Yeah.
We'll be online and Wednesdays and Sundays at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
For approximately an hour.
Yep.
And like us to your friends. Who are we sponsored by? Anybody this week?
Oh yes. The Red Hen.
The Red Hen, yes. The Red Hen Consortium.
That's right. Look, please eat at the Red Hen, Washington, D.C.
Yeah, egg them. I thought it was interesting that you egg the hen.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, it's perfect. It's perfect. But no, do not egg the hen. Go eat there. Have a good time. Do not yell at anybody. Please adhere to Miss Manners decorum. And when you're at a restaurant, keep to your damn own table.
Right. Bad enough when you go to a restaurant and it's just noisy.
Yeah.
You have a party next to you, you can't even hear yourself. I think I was at one last night like that.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, anyway, we'll be back Sunday.
Yeah.
With all new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we'll have some more on Justice Kennedy by then. I don't know.
Oh, you never know.
You never know.